Hi, I'm Coach Amber, and welcome to the MeetRx Success Story podcast. Today we have Bryan with us, and he's going to share his story. Welcome, Bryan.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, let's get started. The first question I want to ask you is, what was your life like prior to a meat-based diet? Were you having any health issues? Why did you want to go meat-based?
Well, I have a generational weight issue. Like my great-grandmother, my grandmother, my mom, myself, my brother, my sons are all overweight. And it has been something that I have dealt with my entire life, literally from a little kid on up. When I was 24, I came down with gout. Gout is extremely painful and a problem, but I've learned a lot about it. Back then, the treatment was you can't eat meat, you got to eat vegan, you got to eat, you can't eat any of these high purine foods and all this stuff. And I followed that example and I put on another 100 pounds. And so for essentially the last 30 years, I've weighed close to 500 pounds. At times been over 500 pounds. When you're 500 pounds, you can't walk. You can't function. You don't fit in cars. You don't fit in chairs. You don't fit in buildings. I'm 6'2" and 500 pounds. I'm a big guy. In the 90s, I was introduced to Atkins, and I had some great improvement, but I just couldn't stick with it. Too many outside influences. People in my life not really being on board with my weight loss, even though they saw the difference in me then. And eventually I put the weight back on, of course, more. In 2017, I had a thoracotomy, and I don't know if you're familiar with that, but basically they open your chest and clean out your lung that's full of fluid because you have pneumonia. And they had me in the cardiac diabetic ward, swearing up and down I was diabetic because my A1C was a little high. Never mind, they'd been giving me, sugar water for 3 or 4 days through surgery and everything. And then, your insulin and this and that. And they were giving me insulin, which I had really bad reactions to, and just really bad reactions. So I started reading their diet. This was after the surgery. And essentially, they wanted me to eat the equivalent of 21 slices of bread a day in carbohydrates, 210 grams of carbs a day. And this was their diabetic diet. The first meal they gave me after surgery was Fruit Loops and a banana and orange juice and coffee and pancakes. And they're sitting there telling me, "Oh, you're diabetic," and all this stuff. So I got my wife to read it. When she said 210 grams of carbs, I'm like, good golly, that's 21 slices of bread to give an equivalent. So I started ordering my own meals, and I was ordering omelets because I was familiar with low carb at that point. And I would order the scrambled eggs or the omelets with sausage and bacon. Of course, they would put all the fruit and the cereal on the side. I just wouldn't eat it. And lo and behold, like a day later, my A1C comes down. They stopped giving me insulin. They're, "Oh, look, we cured you, but you're going to have to take metformin." So I left the hospital and I went to where I was recovering, and I'm taking the metformin and I'm falling out. I'm like, my blood sugar is dropping so low, I'm falling out because I'm still eating low carb. So I stopped the metformin and went, okay, things have got to change. Well, I went back to work, went back on the road. We were long haul drivers, and it's hard to do this when you're on the road because Sonic's easy to pull in and buy something. And I put weight back on, and I wasn't feeling good. And I'm like, okay, it's time to fix this. So in 2018, December of 2018, I made a decision to go keto. And we got the keto trackers, and we were being real careful, and we were losing weight. My wife lost weight by accident just because she's hanging out with me mostly. And she lost 60 pounds. And I was losing weight, but I plateaued. And I was talking to a friend, and I was telling him about keto, and he goes, carnivore is easier. What do you mean carnivore? Never heard of it. He goes, carnivore is easier. Just trust me on this. Okay. So I started to research it and realized that, yeah, eating meat, not having to count and not having to worry about my macros and all that stuff is just a lot easier to deal with. So we made the transition to eating only meat, 3 times a day, sometimes 2 times a day, depending on how I felt. And then I got to where I kind of plateaued on that, somewhere around 360. And so I transitioned to the 1 meal a day with the intermittent fasting. So I essentially eat between 8 and noon and eat as much as meat as I want, mostly beef. Honestly, it's mostly hamburger. I do eat my steaks when I can get them, but right now, like prime or ribeye steaks are really expensive here in San Antonio. $15 a pound. That's just outrageous, but whatever. Hamburger's still cheap, and it works just as well. I do eat some Nathan's all beef hot dogs, but they're all natural, all beef hot dogs. They're kind of my easy go-to if I need a little snack. I can grab one and warm it up in the microwave and eat it. But since I made that transition, I have far less gout. I do have gout, and I occasionally sabotage myself. Should leave alcohol alone, and I don't always do that, and it causes me to have a flare up, and I know, and it's like, beat myself up and pay for it, but it is what it is. I live with that. I know it's there, but I'm not having months of gout, not having months of my feet being so swollen I can't get them in my shoes. It's usually a few days, a day or two, and I'm over it, and we're good to go. I'm sorry, sorry about that. My nose running. My skin's better. I've had to replace my wardrobe. I'm down. My peak documented weight. I have no idea if this is actually my peak weight. I know I was way up there, but my documented weight was 511 pounds. And I was on a scale a few days ago. I was 320. That's 191 pounds down. Yeah. And my goal is to get back to my high school weight, which was 280. I'm only 40 pounds away. There was a time when, I'm 500 pounds and yep, there's Amazon. I knew they were going to show up in the middle of this. There was a time when, you're looking at 200 pounds to 280. It's like, oh man, never make it. Now it's 40 pounds. It's 40 pounds. I can walk. I got me a little smartwatch that tells me my heart rate, my calories, my steps, and all that kind of stuff. It's not all that expensive, but it's functional and kind of helps me stay on track. Yeah, the door's unlocked. I'm on my interview, babe. This is my wife. Come here. This is my wife's guy. She accidentally lost 60 pounds hanging out with me.
Right. It's terrible.
She wasn't trying, but that's the thing. She just, because she supports me in the way that we eat, and it doesn't sabotage me. That's a big, huge thing. That's a big package. That's important. That's an important factor to all this, that the people in your life are on your side. If they won't change, then change who you hang around with. I mean, if your people aren't supportive, find people who are, because that's important. That's always been the issue before in the background, is that if you don't have the support, if they're sitting there eating a bowl of ice cream in front of you going, well, you don't need any ice cream. Well, what are you going to do? That's, she's moving the packages in. I knew they were going to show up in the middle of this. Anyway, my best advice, and what I tell my family, because my family's finally coming around. They saw me at Christmas time, 6-7 months ago, but then a few of my family members just saw me a few days ago and were astounded. In fact, my nephew's wife, I guess she'd be my niece-in-law, whatever. she come around the corner and I saw her jaw drop and hit the floor. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. And so then she started texting me and asking me what I did. And then I had a conversation with my brother. My brother is 480 pounds and has a fairly physical job. And I'll tell you what I told them. Get out your scale, get out your measuring tape, weigh and measure your arms, your biceps, your forearms, your thighs, your calves, your ankles, your waist, your bust. Measure all these things, write it all down, get on a scale, write that down, and then stick all that stuff in a closet for 30 days and eat nothing but beef for 3 meals a day. Drink water and I use pink salt, pink Himalayan salt. I do use a little garlic and pepper on my steaks and stuff, but that's pretty much the extent of my seasoning. But do that for 30 days. And after the 30 days, get your scale out, get your measuring tape out and remeasure all those things. And you'll be astounded at the difference and you'll feel so much better. It's amazing. In 30 days, it's worth 30 days of your life to have a life-changing event. And that's what I can really say about it. I told my brother that yesterday on the phone. I said, I realize it's kind of extreme from what you're used to. I said, but it takes a higher level of thinking to get out of the trouble that our stinking thinking got us into. And that's what it is. And that's where I stand. And I've got the results. I got a friend in Missouri who was like, oh man, I can't do it. I'm like, dude, I'm telling you, I have the results. I'm sitting right here. You know, at the time I was down like 180 pounds. So I have the results. You know, you cannot stand there or sit there on the phone and deny my results. He's been carnivore for about 35, 40 days now. And he's lost probably 40 pounds. And his health is a lot better. I'm hoping I can get my brother and my nephew and his wife to change their lives because it's important. And if you want to have any kind of a life, be able to walk. I couldn't walk across the street. I walk an average of 1.5 to 2 miles a day now. According to my watch, I do that. So, so I don't know. I run a self-storage facility. So, I walk all the time around here, except when I have gout, you know. So is there anything else you would like to know?
That's amazing what you've accomplished. And I love your advice. I think it's dead on. Yeah, you kind of mentioned a little bit about what you eat. But can you kind of give us an idea of what a day looks like for you? And when you first started, did you have any transitional issues?
Transitional issues mostly came with when I tried to add a food back. I discovered through this that like I'm allergic to nightshades, tomatoes, potatoes, eggplant, all that kind of stuff. I used eggplant lasagna. I loved it, but I can't eat it. I have a really bad day for a couple of days after I eat anything with like tomato base or anything like that. I made lasagna for the youth group. I used to make really good lasagna. And I made it for the youth group, and I thought, I've been carnivore at this point, like 6 months. I'll try it. What a mistake. I 2 days of not being able to get very far from the bathroom and just feeling, having lots of inflammation. I end up having lots and lots of inflammation whenever I eat anything that is a nightshade. So that has pushed me to avoid those foods altogether. Not even to go, oh, well, it'll be okay. I'll just do it this one time. It's like, no, it's bad. I feel bad afterwards. My buddy I was talking about up in Missouri that's been carnivore for about 40 days. He found out real quick. He didn't believe me when I would tell him this stuff. And he'd been carnivore about 2 weeks. And he tried something and he's like, man, he says, I will never do that again. He says, I couldn't walk the next day. My knees were so inflamed. I'm like, I told you. I warned you. As far as the any like bathroom issues, that kind of depends on how messed up you are to begin with. And when you transition away from the SAD diet, you will probably have some issues. but they're not long lasting. You know, as your gut heals, as you get better, because that's what's going to happen. You're going to get better inside. As you get better inside, you're going to have less and less of those issues, because your systems start functioning correctly. And so now at this point, because meat is so digestible, there's very little like indigestible anything that passes through. And if it does, it's 2-3 days later. It's not, I'm not spending, an hour a day in the bathroom for sure. So
the go U-Haul is 46842.
we run this storage facility and have U-Haul. We got stuff going on all the time around this. So that's
No
what
problem. What does a typical day of food look like for you?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. If I've got a ribeye steak, I get up in the morning and I get my skillet as hot as I can get it, and I put some lard in it, and I usually will warm the steak a little bit in the microwave just to take the chill off of it, and I lay it at hot grease for about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes on each side, and that's my breakfast. I may have eggs on the side. I will do bacon and eggs. I can't do sausage. See, for some reason, pork causes me to have an allergic reaction, like I've been in the pollen. Sneezing, itchy, watery eyes, and stuff like it. Bacon doesn't do that, but sausage and regular pork just is really hard on me, so I avoid that. Or I'll make like 1 pound burgers and bake them in the oven. I usually make them shaped like a donut, and I'll cook them for like 15 minutes at 375, and I'll flip them over and I'll drop an egg into the hole, and I'll put a piece of cheese over top of that and put it back in the oven for about 10 minutes. And so then I get this 1 pound burger with an egg and a piece of cheese, and that's my meal for the day. That's usually all I eat. Sometimes, especially if I'm really active that day, I may be hungry at noon, and that's when I'll go get a Nathan's all natural, all beef hot dog, or so I don't want to like fix a big meal at lunch. Don't really want a big meal at lunch. It's usually just a little something. If I get through lunch, you get to this time of the day and I haven't eaten anything, I'm not going to eat anything else for the rest of the day. The only other thing where I break that rule is if I have to take anti-inflammatory because of gout, because you have to take that with food. It's going to eat a hole in your stomach if you don't. That includes like ibuprofen and indomethacin and things like that. So I will have to eat something if I take one of those in the evening, but I usually don't. Most days I don't. So, yeah, I tried to, like, my wife doesn't deal well with not eating before bed because she goes to bed hungry. She can't really sleep. So she'll eat 3 times a day usually. I just don't. And I try to do it in the evening, but then the fasting all day and then eating at night didn't work well for me. Is eating first thing in the morning works the best. So
Perfect. Okay, one last question. Now, you've kind of talked about the improvements as far as weight loss and gout go, but was there anything you experienced that you weren't really expecting that was an improvement?
Yeah, I mean, so I can show you my arm. Most people who lose a lot of weight, they have a big, like you see the people have weight loss surgery, they'll have a lot of big flappy skin. I think I attribute this to the fasting because you look at my picture that I sent, my arm was huge. This is all going away. It's not, that I did not expect that. It's both sides, both arms. I expected there to be, the big elephant ears like I see so often, and people who particularly have the bypass surgeries. My mom had that in 1973 when it was a brand new thing. It ultimately killed her. She starved to death. We're not designed to have our plumbing rearranged. We need that plumbing to actually absorb nutrients. And when they bypassed it in her, she couldn't absorb anything. And so she was night blind in her 50s because she couldn't get enough vitamin A. She had osteoporosis because she couldn't absorb enough calcium. She died at 64 of liver failure because of it. she lost a bunch of weight, but she was never healthy. You know, and I miss my mom. She looked like she was 90 when she died at 64. Okay. She shouldn't have looked like that, but it was because of malnutrition. And she died of malnutrition because of the surgery. To her dying day, she had the elephant ears. They never went away. Never. You know. And she got that done in her 30s. She was in her 30s in 1973. And
that's so sad.
Yeah, you know, if she had not done that, because she tried Weight Watchers and stuff back like 1970, Weight Watchers was actually a protein based diet. I remember because she could eat, you know, this was protein and was very specific. And then they changed it later when they started selling their own foods and stuff, and that wasn't the same thing. But yeah, and so that's why I refused to do that surgery and have been looking for alternate ways to lose the weight. And I finally, with Carnivore, have, you know, I've got it figured out, and I have the results. So it's not like it's, you know, it's not like it's like I lost 20 pounds on Jenny Craig. No, it's, you know, I've lost 191 pounds eating hamburger. I mean, honestly, you know, 4 out of 5 meals is the cheapest hamburger I can buy at Walmart. You know, I like my steaks. I do, but it's not an everyday thing, just cost prohibitive. Yep. So, you know.
Well, your results are amazing. I mean, I will just have to tell you that is incredible. And I'm so glad you did find Carnivore.
I am too. I really am. You know, this particular friend of mine, he's actually a pastor, and he has an online presence on YouTube. And I was actually I was chatting with him while he was on a Saturday morning on a live, and he's like, you know, yeah, forget keto, just go carnivore. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. So I had to go study it. And of course, I found Dr. Baker pretty quickly in that, and started following him. And that was, oh gosh, early 2019, I think.
That's amazing. Well, Bryan, thank you so very much for sharing your story and coming on the podcast. I appreciate that. And I think it's going to help a lot of people to hear your story.
I hope so, because, you know, obesity is an epidemic. When you read the labels on the food, it's scary. If you can't pronounce it, don't eat it. You know, I mean, I look at these labels and I'm like, no, you know, no. I mean, at least, you know, the dog's food has real meat in it, you know. I mean, come on. This isn't real. This is fake processed stuff. Moving around in my office, my camera's going off, making noise. That's what that is. But yeah, I don't know if you can see it. There's a Ring camera in the corner right up there. But at any rate, it's, as I move, it goes off. It makes noise. But yeah, that's it. I hope people get good from this, because one of the most startling things I've seen recently is a photo of the beach from 1970, and then compared to a photo of people at the beach now. And it's astounding that people the same age weigh twice as much as they would have in 1970, you know? And it's like, yeah, okay, I get it. You know?
I agree with you there. It is so scary. But again, I want to thank you for coming on, and you have a wonderful day. Thanks,
You
Bryan.
too. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.